Okay, welcome. Uh, what I want to talk about today is using VirtualBox and virtual machines. This group of slides are really only recommended if you're on Windows and you don't think you'll be able to get a Raspberry Pi and you don't have another Linux setup already. So let's just talk about what a virtual machine is. So a virtual machine is software that emulates a physical machine. It pretends to be a physical machine with virtual representations for much of the resources that you would physically have in an actual machine. They may also provide a way to virtually divide up the space you have on your physical machine so that you can give over some resources to the virtual machine while your physical machine keeps on operating because it has to keep on doing things. One of the things which is cool about a virtual machine is that the hardware is set up in such a way to give higher priority access to the virtual machine than it would to any other software. Now what that means is you need to give special permissions in the hardware. Right? Unfortunately, that particular part is going to be different on different kinds of machines. Okay, so advantages of using a virtual machine. Well, they're easy to set up if you're mainly familiar with Windows, like we'll just install a bit of software and then pull down an appliance and install it. You won't need a second computer. And the appliance that you download will have everything you need. You won't need to do anything more in terms of working with that environment for these tutorials. So some disadvantages of a virtual machine. Now, even though you get some higher priority access to the CPU, lots of things will happen more slowly because there's still sharing of things like memory and video memory and so on. And for some access to some resources like disk, you need some permissions from the operating system itself. So from what we call the host operating system or the base operating system, i.e. Windows. It does take some time to set up and to start the virtual machine. I find using virtual machines actually discourages the exploration of that machine because because of the resources it takes up, you just switch it off when you're not using it. And there's some effort that goes into starting it up again. And so there is a tendency to not use it, is what I've found. Now, because it's a good idea to get used to working on the command line, many of the tools in these tutorials will be command line oriented. You will need to make some changes, as I mentioned before, to the firmware to enable virtualization. Now, the problem is that this is different for every computer, like where the setting is going to be different on every computer, so you just have to look around a bit. You might find that you can Google your particular hardware and that someone might have put up a tutorial on how to enable virtualization for that hardware. Let's actually install. So let's go to this link here. And this will download a version of VirtualBox. So Presuming we're on Windows, we would use this. You could use this on the Mac as well. All good. But I would recommend, if you have access to a terminal, to use that terminal and to set things up there. Okay, so let's just go into here. Okay, this will download, take a couple of minutes or a minute to download. The other thing actually with virtualization is if you've already got one version of virtualization running on your computer and you try to install another one, they can interfere with each other. So that may not be the best idea. Almost downloaded. Okay. Yep, antivirus is scanning it. It's been verified. So let's now run it. And I'll just click yes here. I don't know if you can see this window. That's, yep. Okay, so we're going to go next. That looks good. We can have a look at how much disk it will use. So it needs 420 megabytes. There's 194 available on mine. So I'll just go next. I'll accept the default installation place. Yeah, proceed with the installation. Yep. And this will just take a minute or two. There's sometimes a few hiccups when setting up virtualization, and we might come across a couple of those here ourselves. Yep, let's start the VirtualBox, yep. Okay, there it is, it's starting. What we're going to do, now that we've downloaded and installed VirtualBox, is we're going to actually install the virtual machine. And I've provided a link here that you can use, so just go into the slides, which are actually a link is provided on the current week's materials. Just click on the link. And sometimes it might be not, it might not be working correctly, so what you just do is then just select a link, then Control C to copy, then open up another tab and paste that fella in. So now we'll download this. Now this will take a while to download, so I'm going to skip most of that in this recording. I'll just cut it out. It says, okay, can't scan for virus because it's too big. Yep, that's fine. You can and should scan for viruses on your end. I have AVG installed on this laptop. That's all good. Okay, so now that it's finished downloading, let's actually set up the virtual machine. So I'll just run VirtualBox. There we go. Okay, so I've got VirtualBox up and started, so I'm going to import the appliance and we'll just browse for it. And in downloads, this one here, open, click on next. Most of this should be fine unless you want to actually change where the virtual machine is stored. Most of it we really won't care about. It's just really a matter of getting it going and getting it well behaved. Finish. Now that's going to take some few minutes to complete, and this should all be fairly straightforward. We shouldn't have any problems at this point. And so I'm just going to pause the recording again. As you can see, the virtual machine is successfully imported. Now, I did have a small problem when installing it for myself, and sometimes you'll come up with these issues and so on. In my case, it was just that the virtual machine was already on this machine, and therefore it was going, that already exists, I'm not creating it again. So I just had to rename it in my case. Now there might be other minor issues, like for example, you haven't enabled virtualization in the BIOS, things like that. Now it would be helpful if you could provide, if there's any errors, if you can provide a screenshot and maybe a few words as to what you were trying to do, etc., etc. But before we start it, there's a few settings we might want to have a look at. Okay, so start off in system. Now generally you want to drag this across so that it's at the dividing line, so it's not in the red but it's at the edge of the green here, right? Most things you won't have to change very much. Processes. How many processes do I want to dedicate? I've just said one because I want I still want my computer to be reliable. I possibly could increase that to 2, but it really won't make any difference for what we're doing. Acceleration, leave that as is. Display. Now you might want to enable 3D acceleration, but we're not really doing anything for which that would be useful. Okay, video memory. Again, that's something you do want to increase, definitely. I generally max that out. I only have one monitor, so I can't really change anything there. I'll leave storage as is. You might want to create a shared folder. I would actually discourage from doing that because it can actually be a bit of a pain to set it up. But okay, then we will just say okay to all that. And we'll click start. And it's just powering it up. which is looking good. Yep. Some of these messages we get at the start here are to be expected. They're just part of operating systems using a variety of hardware, and in this case it actually being in software. So sometimes what you might find is the screen may remain blank, and if it does, what I do is I just restore the screen, like I take it out of full screen. Okay, so I'll now C programmer, the password is programming. And okay, so now that's looking a little bit small, so let's just going to restore this screen. And oh, there we go, that's much better. Okay, now let's try viewing it again full screen, see if it that's odd. Okay, when in full screen it's not letting us use the whole screen, but if we have it windowed then we got the whole screen and we can use it. Okay, that's odd. Okay, that's fine. So now if we just open up a terminal window, and just to show you that it does indeed work correctly, I will just update the software on here. So this basically asks the package manager, hey, check if all the software's up to date, and it is. But if it wasn't, if it said that there were some packages, you could just upgrade it. But that's all done. And all the software you need for the conversations we're going to have is right here. So what I would like you to do is spend the rest of the week becoming more familiar and using the Introduction to Unix PDF that I have put up there. Okay? Good luck. Take care.